Oh man, rookie mistake. I thought I hit the go live. We are live now. What's going on, YouTube? I thought I hit the live, but I didn't hit the whole live button. Let me do a roll call. My God, I'm getting old. We got Tuli, who's got a live going on right now. Make sure y'all check that. West Texas, J-Lo, Gerald Draper, son of a silver stacker. What's up, my brother? Silver Cigars, Bob, Silver Patriot. Welcome in, everybody. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you guys a man I had the privilege of meeting. Hell of a guy, can't say enough. He's smarter than I will ever be. Mr. Stackers University. If you don't know who he is, you're living under a rock. His link is in the description below. You all need to follow him. He's just an icon of knowledge. And we tend to agree on our stacking strategies. And I'm not saying I'm smart, but I'm just saying he's smart. What's up, my man?
Oh, stop it, brother. It's so good to have this time with you and be in community with you. Last time I saw you were hanging out and on your road trip, and it's just a great delight to be here. So, and thank you for everyone that's jumped in here with us, and we're just gonna have some fun with each other. And well, wait a minute, hold on, that sounded wrong. We're gonna have some good time talking about metals, and
I'll show you yours if you show me mine.
Listen, man, Mr. Stacker is too far away. I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
What's up, Mickey? Thanks for coming in. Grumpy Buffalo, welcome in. So yeah, man, we had the chance to meet in November. Yeah, I'm telling you all right now, we had a lot of fun. But anybody who says California is always warm, they are lying, man. It was cold, dude. Whew.
Yeah. Northern California gets definitely cold, brother.
So what's on your mind today, sir?
Oh man, there's always something on my mind. You know, it's just what direction we want to go. The markets are very interesting. I think they're sending us some interesting messages. We saw that pop from the Fed meeting. Most of the Fed talk is nonsense, but it's all about how people react to it.
Right, and the markets respond to what they say.
Yeah, right. Well, they don't really say much. You know, he quote unquote was dovish. And the markets responded really well, but I think what we're kind of missing here is that we're ultimately headed into stagflation. Let's just call it what it is, and that's really early to say that. I know, but inflation comes in waves, and we are already seeing oil break out from that 80 resistance level it had, $80, and now it's heading towards 85. We're heading into the summer months when oil becomes more expensive. Gasoline becomes more expensive anyway. Oil goes into an obscene number of items in our daily use that people just don't know. And so that will be incredibly inflationary. And I think the gold market is sending us a very clear message if you can decipher it, right? We've seen all this resistance and yields and pushing pressure that should have driven the price of gold down, and it didn't go down. We saw silver go down, but we didn't see gold go down. Well, we've logically said, well, that's the result of the central banks buying. That's held up the prices. Yeah, that makes great sense. And we've also seen that as prices go higher, central banks don't buy at the same level. And so what gold is really telling us is that inflation is coming. Gold always anticipates it. And if we know that inflation is coming, and we know a recession is bound at some point, be it late this year or early next year, that gets you pretty much into that stagflationary environment, which is going to be very challenging for folks.
Man, it is.
That was a long answer to your short question, brother. I apologize.
Well, no, it's so funny you say that gold is trying to tell us something, because I realize that the world loves gold. It always has. In fact, I have a saying: the world is obsessed with gold, therefore I must have it. Now, I'm not the biggest gold bug. I like silver, but see, here's the thing. People get caught up in their emotions, and they invest in an asset they're emotionally attached to. And while silver is my favorite, gold is telling us something, and I've been buying more gold. I got two 1/10 ounce pieces on the way. I just finished this tube of platinum, so that puts me at 2 ounces. And what I'm going to do, I got another tube over here. I am going to make this one fun. I'm going to fill this with fractional gold and platinum 1-to-1 ratio because I realize other metals are trying to tell me something, and I must respond to that. It don't matter that I love silver the best. I have to see gold, and I think even platinum are trying to tell us something. I think you're absolutely right.
And it's tough because I fundamentally love silver and see tremendous potential. The challenge is it it doesn't always perform, and it needs the right circumstances and conditions, and that's why you need gold to continue pushing, because it's going to drag silver with it. What gets interesting is there's a lot of data that shows that when you enter a recession, silver actually has a stronger pullback. So everyone loves that silver comes on very strong at the end and you can get these incredible gains, but you got to deal with a whole lot of downside and volatility and movement in that price that can be really tough for folks. So the gold gives you the stability and pretty solid growth. Your silver is going to give you that explosive potential upside, and we're actually in a place now where platinum is looking really, really good. We still have some issues with Russia selling off a lot of platinum. That's keeping the price down. But long term, that's a great move. You're going to be very pleased with those platinum pieces that you picked up. And the 1/10 size is fantastic because you can, let's say platinum gets to, 3,000, which wouldn't be crazy because it used to be priced more than gold. That 10th ounce is a good chunk of money, and you're not selling off a large part of your stack just to, get a little extra cash in your pocket.
Oh, for sure, man. Platinum historically, since I started stacking, was always higher than gold. I think it topped out at 22.20 or something at its height.
Yeah.
And let me back up a little bit. What's up, Savage Lee, Christopher, Asset Stacker? Thanks for coming in, guys. JC, man, we got a good crowd, and there's a lot of lives going on right now. Y'all are fantastic. So silver is fundamentally it's my favorite metal, and so I relate to you on fundamentally loving silver. Now, let me back up by saying, if you have all silver, if you have all gold, if you have all platinum, I'm not saying that's the way to go. Obviously, we're not financial advisors, but what I'm saying is, if you're all in on one metal, thank you for that super chat, Christopher McCormick.
You are way too good, brother.
He is way too good to me. He's good to you too, man. I don't know what we're doing, but this guy is, man, I appreciate that. He's awesome.
Yeah.
What's up, Silver Wolverine? That's a heavy hitter right there. Anyway, if you have, if you're all in on one metal, I think you're going to weather the storm. Even palladium, just don't buy it right now. I think you're going to weather the storm better than people who have no metal. So I really don't think stacking, you can truly go wrong, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is the beauty of it is it's taking money out of the system, right? And we are protecting our purchasing power and getting it off the grid. I mean, frankly, that's how I first started. I had money and I was like, I don't like this in my account. I don't like that someone can sue me and take this. They can't take what they don't know I have. And so that was my first real entry into it. And I love that, you can bug out and take what you need. And it has a lot of wonderful things here. I think the problem I have with silver is not silver. Silver does what silver is going to do. The problem is the expectations that get established around silver and the narrative and the hopium that is sold to people that make it so unrealistic and that you can only be disappointed. You should underpromise and overdeliver. And there are so many folks that are just telling people these obscene numbers, and it may get there at some point. But before it gets to 300, guess where it's got to go? 50. Let's worry about 50. Let's see what it looks like when it gets to 50. And that's what concerns me right now about silver is it has everything it needs to potentially do extremely well. You also have this it's not popular to say anything bad about the Reddit folks, right? They'll come at you and hunt you down. But the challenge is there are a number of people that are sitting on $32, $35 stacks that were believing that this was going to go to the moon right away. And they've had to sit on that stack for 2 or 3 years now. And they've had to listen to their wives or whoever it is about how it was supposed to go a very different direction than silver has gone. And you've seen it get cut in half. If you bought it 35, you've seen it at $17. And so what happens when it gets to that number and those people say, hey, I'm out, right? We start to rally. We have a number of points here where I think there are going to be a lot of these so-called hardcore people that are going to pull the ripcord.
Man, you just nailed it. Anyone who's been paying attention knows that the last few videos I've done have been talking about just that. Because I remember in 2008 or 2009 being that new stacker, right? And if I would have seen what some of these guys are peddling, man, I'm not kidding you. I've seen guys go from 700 subs to over 5,000 in 3 weeks because they're peddling, $2,000, $5,000 an ounce silver. And what concerns me about that is number one, I noticed something about these channels. They never show you much silver. So number one, do they really have it? Okay, that's my first question. And that's why I do a lot of unboxings, because I walk the walk that I talk. And number two, if you're that new stacker, I mean, man, you remember when you got into it, right? It was shiny, it was beautiful. You held it in your hand. I mean, wasn't it? It was almost a high, right?
Oh God,
and,
yeah.
And it was addicting. And if you're that new stacker and you come across channels like that, let's say you sell your house, you take out personal loans, you max out your cards, you cash in your retirement accounts. What's up, Sheffy? Because you're feeding into that, because that's where your emotions are at the moment, and you're on that train. You could damage someone's life tremendously. And while you're not outright telling them to do that, you're providing that path. And I'm not going to name names, of course, because there's a lot of them, but I just don't respect that mentality. I'm not going to do that to people, because I remember being in those shoes, man. I was addicted from day one.
So let's talk about this, man, because I've only used one name ever, and I regretted that. I shouldn't have done it. I'll own it. But
I've done it too. I'm trying to grow.
Right. I'm trying to be a better man, right? The good Lord, he's still working on me. But let's be honest here. Don't you have a responsibility? Like, don't we have a responsibility that if someone says, I'm going to give you 10, 20, 30 minutes of my day to listen to what you have to say, don't we have a better responsibility than that?
Man, that's what I'm saying, 100%, okay?
Right?
We have a responsibility, if we are seasoned stackers, to lead people down the right path and save them from the mistakes that we may have made, if we can. And just like I reached out to Money Metals to do an affiliate link program, which was approved. It doesn't cost anyone anymore to use that link, because I think they're the best price on platinum I found. So I use them. I'm going to push them. That Calinex Mines video I did, well, guess what? I'm a shareholder. I'm never going to tell someone something on my channel that I don't do or believe in myself. What's up, OTG? And it's that responsibility factor, man, like you just said. And it really bothers me to my core that people don't feel the way that they should about that.
Leave it to my Stackers University people to call out names. I ain't gonna say it, but yeah, and I agree. We got to be too old to care. The problem I have is people. I started looking at YouTube because I was getting back into it, and I wanted good information. And it was just so bad. It was so bad that's why I started a channel. Like I just couldn't take it. And then I was like, Mrs. Stacker was like, well, you got to do something about it. Well, okay. So I started doing something about it. And I get it. You got to make your money. I get it. Like when you can just turn the camera on and, say the same thing you've said 15,000 times, and the folks just keep watching, and you can make, a couple $100 because you get 60, 70,000 views. There's no motivation to do anything different. And I get that. But I don't know. I don't know if I want that money, right? I mean, some of my videos do well. Some of my videos do, 2,000, this. a 2,000 view video what gets you $30, something like that.
Yeah, it totally depends on the ad revenue. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 30. But hell, I'm getting 600 views a video lately. It's terrible, but at least I'm telling the truth.
So I'm not, we're not doing this because I'm gonna get paid off of this. Like I can take my time and make far more money. All right, Savagely, I'm gonna shout out your people now. But but it's all about like, what are we putting out there? Yep. Like, what's that good karma, right? Like, yeah, you made money, but like you've done harm to people in the process because you told them, because while we aren't advisors, we're not professionals, people trust us.
Yep.
They tune into us, they get connected with us.
I can't tell you how many people have told me I've changed their life, man. They're like, dude, you got me stacking.
Brother.
I'm talking on Facebook groups. Now, someone mentioned Slayer. That actually isn't who I was thinking of, although I get what y'all are saying. There's others out there, and they're growing, not just in numbers, but as far as there's more channels coming on doing that. And some of them are financial. There's 2 other stacking channels that come to mind. And man, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't unsub people. I've unsubbed them both because I'm not good with that. Like, you are morally hurting people or potentially hurting people for your bank account, number one. And number two, I never see those people put medals out in their videos. So I'm like, okay, you're selling this narrative and you're making a lot of damn money, but do you even believe the narrative you're pushing? You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've been completely transparent on my channel where there are times where I'm like, I'm not buying right now, y'all. I'm gonna let this thing continue to fall, and then I'm gonna pick it up when it's down low. And so that's just because we have to, while we know it's smart to get our fiat dollars into metals, we also need to try to do that as efficiently as possible. Oh, and if you know the market's going down, don't buy that thing while it's going down. Let it hit bottom, and then you can go do that.
And and when the metal markets go down, you can make money. I'm not going to pump stocks, but I have a lot of stocks and cryptos, and I've done pretty well, especially lately. You can make money in other markets, and you can take profits. And when the time is right to go into metals, you can grow your stack, because unless you make a lot of damn money working, you cannot save yourself into riches by stacking. You can't. So you've got to have that edge. Unless you're like Nickel Stacking, who's in here. He started stacking silver at $4.99 an ounce, and the guy's got a ton. He timed the market right. But in today's day and age, if you started in the last 10 years, 15 years like myself, you've got to have that edge. Unless you're making $300,000-400,000 a year, then you can save yourself into riches.
Yeah, and we have to. I think one of our challenges is we realize how bad our paper money is, and that we get very focused on getting into the metals, and we've got to diversify our assets as well. So we got to have some of these metals, and maybe you're saving your metals up because, hey, I'm going to get to that point, and then I'm going to take part of my stack, and that's going to be a down payment for a rental property. That's going to be a down payment for some kind of small business I want to get into. Right? We have to find these ways to grow our money. That's the difference between the regular people and wealthy or rich, whatever term you want to use, is that they know how to grow and invest their money. We can't save our way through this. Now, this can be our savior if things go totally wrong, but we got to, every dollar, I say this on my channel all the time, every dollar is an employee. Their job is to go get me more employees. And
you don't know how bad I want to steal that line from you, by the way, but I don't. Because my old man said the same thing. He didn't use the word employee, but he said every dollar that you spend and squander is another dollar that will never make you another dollar again. And he's right.
Well, and because we focus on metals, but you and I do this all the time. We focus on metals, but we're also talking about, having a good budget, living within your means. That whole kind of financial wellness piece, right? Because we have to be intentional about what we have. Let me say it this way. Your money is a fickle temptress, a fickle mistress. If you don't pay her any attention, she will leave you.
Oh man, now you're talking Gordon Gekko in Wall Street.
Right. Right.
Oh man, I'm telling you, he goes,
Right.
oh, I've never thought of money as a woman. And he goes, oh, she looks at you there, pal. She stares at you with one eye open when she sleeps. And he's right. If you don't pay attention to your money, there's an old saying, a fool in their money shall soon part ways. And that's absolutely true.
Right.
And money is
And
jealous. And if you don't pay attention to her, she's out the door, man.
out the door to the next person.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to stack, but we also got to be paying attention to our financials as a whole and making sure that we tamp down that desire to consume, that American desire that, oh, I got to have more. We got to tamp that down, because the better we do that, the more you can add to your stack.
You talk about consuming, and that's so funny. My end game is physical assets, and I love physical assets so much I'll use paper profits to get there. Some stackers don't like that. I used to be one of them, but I had Lior on my channel last live stream we did, who I think is an incredibly intelligent man.
Yes,
but we do have a slight difference of opinion on one thing. That's China versus the U.S. In my opinion, China's going to be okay for two reasons. Their central banks have a lot of gold, and they are a manufacturing economy, whereas we don't have much gold, and we are a consumer economy. And if I had to pick, I'd rather be in the economy that was a manufacturing economy as far as stability. But that's just my opinion.
So the challenge to that, I hear what you're saying. The challenge to that is the geography of China makes it a lot harder for it to be kind of that U.S. superpower, right? Like they've got some real advantages, but there are 57 other countries now that are cheaper than China. And in fact, we're going back to Mexico again. And you and I are old enough to remember that when we were growing up, remember all the toys were made in Japan? They were made in Mexico. Now everything's made in China.
I do.
Right?
And I've noticed this trend you're talking about. You're not wrong.
Yeah. And so this is unfortunately, however you want to frame it, this is what we do as a country, right? We go, we find the cheap labor, we exploit them, we build the country up. And then when they get too expensive or they get out of control, we go to another country, we find someone else that's poor that wants to do it. And that's how we keep our economy going.
Well, and I guess I shouldn't just limit it to China, because Taiwan, Vietnam, Mexico, like you say, even India, all these countries are manufacturing stuff that we're consuming. And what worries me for us, what's up, Jeffro? What worries me for us is that we don't manufacture much. We're a consumer economy, which means if all these countries decide tomorrow they hate us, we're in big trouble as a consumer nation. That's my point that I meant to say. I suppose.
And you're right. And then somehow, some way, we became the largest producer of oil. It's like, how do we pull that off? Amazing.
Especially when we're not drilling.
Right. We have uranium in Texas, Wyoming, other places. We have it. Right. We have lots of resources, but it's been cheaper for us to go to other countries, tear up their environment, if we're being honest, and have them do it. And so I think as we
I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, because is our end game, we want to be the only ones with these resources. That way, when it comes time when they need it, we can really up the price. I wonder if that's their end game, man. I've thought about this for a long time.
Who knows, right? I mean, we have the resources as well, but we're also in a place now too where our American labor is very expensive. And so it's so much cheaper to go somewhere else and do it. And that's just the capitalism at its best and worst at the same time, unfortunately. So, who knows? Who knows, brother? I think what we can do is control what we can control.
Yep.
And that's with the decisions we make every single day. And you mentioned silver, and I love the most underrated part of silver is it does such a phenomenal job of teaching you to value money.
Oh, doesn't it? I mean,
you
start relating your expenses. Oh man, that was an ounce of silver.
That's an ounce of silver, brother. Man. Yep. And when you're trying to get your financial life right, having silver be your entry point is powerful.
100%.
You get a little older, long in the tooth. I think you said nickel stacking was at four under $5, right?
Yep.
Like, so it gets a little bit harder as we get a little longer in the tooth and you switch to gold. But yeah, I mean, if you think about things in terms of ounces, be it gold or silver or platinum, you start to make some different kind of decisions, right, along the way.
And it's funny because I remember, so I started stacking when I was 28 or 29. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was penniless. I mean, $5 was the difference between me getting to work and not getting to work every day. True story. There were times I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent. So I went on AppMex like we all did the first time out, and I bought silver and I paid too much. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I remembered my old man when I was growing up took me to the coin shop. And I saw this cool currency and all this gold and silver, and I knew that it was of value. I didn't know much more than that. What's up, Elite? So I bought it thinking, okay, I'm going to get rich. I really believed that. But once it hit my hand, I said, wow, this is something. This is really something. And one thing I knew, as I was a smoker back then, I knew I was not going to take that and go sell it to buy a carton of cigarettes. I knew that. I was going to hold on to it because I knew it was something special. And it really taught me how to save money. Silver saved my financial life. Not because it made me rich, but it taught me to save.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. Like, that's why you get someone to start in silver, is because it takes a while to understand that investing is in your head. And when you can go and you can turn $20 into $30 into an ounce of silver, you get something in your hand and you feel it and you know it. And so it takes a while to kind of get there. And silver is a great way. It's the gateway metal, right? Like, that's how you get started.
That's a good way to look at it. You're right. You're right. And so that's funny, man. I like how you put that. It is the gateway metal for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, and I think, we were talking about what's going on in the world, and I've shared this before on my channel. I'm gonna share this screen here. Let's see if I can do this right without screwing things up here. But there's let me see. Chrome tab window. Let's go here. Let's see if this works here. All right. Can you see my screen at all?
I got to bring it up. Sorry, there we go.
There we go. And so, Lior, you mentioned Lior. This is a very powerful chart. It's a ratio of real assets over time to financial assets. And it goes all the way into, I think it was 2000, and it shows you 15, but I think it's 21 if I remember correctly. But look at this ratio of how over financialized our economic system is, and it's at extreme lows. And I think we are at a point where we're going to see a shift to real assets, tangible things. And I think that's why you see the central banks. That's why you see a greater emphasis on a lot of these, things like oil and metals. And this trend has to reverse itself at some point, right? Is that tomorrow? No. Is it 2 years? Maybe. But it's got to reverse itself, and that's what I think we're experiencing, is the limits to a system that's over financialized. And that's where our metals come in so importantly, because those are real assets. That's why you see Bill Gates and those people buying up farmland and other kinds of investments that are real tangible things. And so we got to stack our metals, folks, but we also got to be looking at other real assets, other commodities that can make us money as well.
And that is so funny you say that, because I've never really, well, okay, when I was a new stacker, I felt that way. But as I've evolved, if you will, I've never understood that disconnect between stackers who love physical assets and, the hatred, if you will, for people who love physical assets that differ from gold and silver. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want tangible physical things. And there's a huge disconnect. And personally, I think you can take a lot from both sides and really make it work together and combine it. And I look at money as a collective thing. If I make $5 here, $500 there, what have you, it's a collective pool of things to me. And there's asset rich and there's cash rich, if you will. Yeah. And I think you can really combine useful information from both ends of the spectrum and end up being asset wealthy in the end. That's my goal. Yeah, and that includes land. That includes land. I mean, that includes a bunch of things.
Yeah, and we have to. I think the thing that challenges me in the community sometimes is we get very narrowly focused on just the metals. And I remember when I first started introducing uranium as something of an investment on my channel, and people were like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, y'all, like, we've got to go where the opportunities are." And I don't know what they did for everybody else, but I know what my uranium stocks have done for me.
I'll tell you what, I got triple U thanks to Rick Rule, and it did pretty well for me.
Yeah, and that, even if it's just to use that to get you more physical metals, take advantage of it.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's free metal, baby. Really, that's how I see it.
We underestimate our intelligence as stackers. We are actually some of the smarter people, because we have to understand a lot of economic concepts to understand where our metals are going, right? We understand that housing and employment and interest rates and bond yields, we understand how that all impacts the prices. And so it's not just gold in isolation, it's not just silver in isolation. It has an impact on uranium, it has an impact on oil, it has an impact on lithium, it has an impact on all these different metals, nickel. And I just hate when we miss the opportunity that are presented to us, where we have these asymmetrical bets, and we don't get a lot of those in our lives as investors.
See, and I agree with you, and that's why I tell a lot of people, if you are too emotionally in love with one asset class, you will ignore other potential possibilities. I did that for many years, and I'm really getting past that. And people like Niels Hans Dynasty and nickel stacking and and there were a couple others that okay, granted, I'm going to talk about metal here, but we're talking about all investments as far as opportunity. But like, take platinum for instance, right? So I had questions. About liquidity and all that, and I kept hearing you guys talk about it. So I really did my homework on what it's used for, its history, the liquidity of it. And I was like, hey, you know what? This is an opportunity I'm missing out on. And that can be done with anything. That can be done with stocks. It can be done with, cryptos. I know that's a dirty word, but it can be done with so many things, and that's what I'm doing. I mean, man, brother, I got stocks, cryptos, Bitcoin, ETFs. I've got not metals ETFs, but I have had. I've got ETFs. I've got index funds. I've got thousands of ounces of silver, not a whole lot of gold, but I'm working on that. I've got a couple ounces of platinum. I mean, the only thing I don't have that I can think of is a CD, which I would have, and real estate. But man, everything else I've got my hand in.
Yeah. And nickel, Stacking mentioned nickel is the deal of the century. It's looking pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is.
And we got to go where the opportunities are. And I will tell you the three really, really interesting opportunities that I see right now: natural gas, nickel, and copper, all day long. I think those are going to be very, very interesting.
Now, let me ask you about copper, because I live in an apartment, so I don't have the space to store scrap copper. I don't have access to scrap copper. I know a lot of people who get free scrap and turn it in and make a lot of money.
Yes.
So what I do, and I think buying copper bullion, unless it's for fun, is an absolute ripoff. So what I do is I play copper in the paper markets, and I've done pretty well with Southern Copper.
Yes.
I think copper's and I don't have the room to store nickel. So for me, I think nickel and copper have huge upside potential in the paper markets. For me.
So listen, the worst thing you can do is to try to play football using baseball rules. The reality, folks, is that it's a paper world in terms of these assets. Our physical metals are not driven by us, it's driven by the paper.
Yep.
And so you can get mad, you can kick, scream, do whatever you want to do. But the reality is, that's the way the game is played. And so either you adapt to play the game or you sit and whine about it. And so we just got to come to terms with that. So yeah, copper is a great stocks or however you want to do it is a great way to play copper. That's right. Like, I'm not telling anyone to go get uranium and store it in their garage.
Well, and it's like Jeffro said also, save the copper pennies. I agree with that if you come across them for sure.
Yeah.
I don't got the eyes and the time to sift through my pennies. I'm not going to lie. But I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
but
and I think you're hitting on the kind of a taboo subject in our community, which is equities. And I gotta tell you, there's nothing wrong with if you have. So let's be clear, and I've shared this on my channel. I've kind of shared this Stacker's wealth of pyramid of wealth, and at the base, it is always your physical holdings. Your gold, your silver, your platinum. You've got to have McCormick's talking about tax liens, man. That's another good investment, but that's a whole different conversation.
Absolutely. Yep.
You have to have your base of your metals, your physical metals. But as we talked about, you can't save your way to wealth. So that becomes your base. That becomes your bedrock from which you build your financial house. And then from there, you've got to take advantage of these things in the equities where you can have leverage growth and all kinds of great opportunities that you just don't really have in the metals market in the same kind of way. And I will tell you, I don't have a problem with anyone buying paper, silver, or gold. Don't buy it thinking that you're protected if things go sideways. But if you want to take advantage of an arbitrage or an opportunity and use the papers opportunities with the ETFs or SLV or whatever it is, go for it. Just know that, kind of like Nicholas Sack is talking about here, if Bitcoin crashes, right? If those things crash, you're stuck holding the bag. That's why you got to have your foundation, and then you got to take advantage of these other opportunities.
Well, see, and you're absolutely right. So Nickel and I, we actually talk a lot on Facebook and on the phone and stuff. And I have an idea on what he's sitting on. And let me tell you all, Nickel's fine because he got into the physical market early because he was able to forecast that and have that foresight. Absolutely. So he has a lower risk tolerance than say somebody like me because he's already made. I'm getting there, but so for me, I woke up one day and I said, okay. I said, look, man, you've got a lot of friggin' metal. You've got a lot of security. You've got a lot of base stack. Now it's time to grow that by taking more risks and raising your risk tolerance with a portion of your capital. And that's what I've done. And so far, it has served me well. And, I probably cost myself some profits because sometimes I cash out and I convert into physical probably sooner than I should. But I have a higher risk tolerance because I'm 43 years old. I'll be 44 this year, and I'm not where I need to be. Nickel's already made it. So you got to consider your risk tolerances and your individual situation too, I think. But that's what I woke up one day and realized. I'm like, you know what? You need more of this stuff and this stuff isn't going to get you more of this stuff unless you get into flipping and all that, which I don't want to do. So you got to find a way to go out and do what Doc Stack says, turn your dollars into employees to make you more dollars to put into more physical assets. And I'm glad I've done that. And I didn't do that for a long time. And in my individual situation, because of the stack that I have, it makes sense because if I lose it all, which is not probable, I still got a lot to fall back on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we have to remind ourselves there's risk in everything. The issue isn't avoiding risk, the issue is managing risk, right? Like walking across the street could be dangerous, of course, but it's hella dangerous if you do it with your eyes closed, right? So if you take the time to invest in yourself and your knowledge and understand how the market works and technicals and all these different things that we talk about, that's how you start to manage your risk. And what's risky is not taking the time to invest in yourself to be a more knowledgeable investor, where you're just taking quote unquote stock tips, right? From people, and you're at the mercy of hopefully people giving you good information. And and that's like when you're and I've been poor. I grew up poor. I've been poor. I've had all the experiences coming home as a kid, lights cut off, whatever, seeing mama cry over bills, all of it. Um, and so the mentality has to shift. That's Rick Rule says it. The biggest threat to your investment is to the left of your right ear and to the right of your left ear. It's you. It's in your head.
That's true.
And the wealthy do a better job of putting themselves in positions to manage the risk better. And we tend to think about as working and poor, we try to like run from risk. And no, you can't run from risk. You got to embrace that thing.
Well,
But
it's just
once you embrace it, go ahead.
the wealthy have hedge funds, right? Well, I am my own hedge fund, and I'm hedged with gold, silver, and I'm getting into the platinum game, so I can afford to manage that risk
Yeah.
by being my own hedge fund. And people never talk about that. So that's a great point you bring up. They are really good at managing that risk. Most of them.
Most of them. Now, sometimes, we all get a little ridiculous and get over our skis, and that happens. But we have to reframe this, and it's just unfortunate because the education that we've been exposed to doesn't expose us to the real education we need for life,
No.
right? I remember that they taught us, excuse me, they taught us how to balance a checkbook, or excuse me, they taught us how to write a check, but they never taught us how to balance a checkbook.
Wow.
Like, how's that happen? Well,
because it's easier to control a society that doesn't understand its money, and B, doesn't understand the rights that they have as the people. Funny how that works, isn't it?
20 years ago, I was at a college because y'all know I'm in education, and I had a student. This is when I was working in the residence halls, and I had a student come up, and he was so confused, and he was like, "Well, I'm out of money." And I'm like, okay, we start talking through it. And he's like, well, I thought as long as I had checks, I had money.
Oh, no.
Man, I can't make that stuff up, brother.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Can't make that up, brother.
But you know what, man? Like, go ahead.
Keep going.
I was going to say, I can't fault, and I want to hear the rest of the story. I can't fault him because I'm going to tell you all how dumb I was once. And this is embarrassing, but it's part of the process and it's part of the growth. And I learned to do something with this once I realized how stupid I was. I really thought when I turned 18 years old and I started getting credit cards, man, I really believed. I was like, that's really nice of these banks to loan me money. I didn't realize they were making so much money off my back. I didn't understand it, man. Just like he didn't understand, I thought I had money if I had checks. But see, I did something with that, and I used that pain to teach me, And
it hurts, right? Because what it steals from you is one of the greatest magnifier amplifiers in finance is time. Because by the time you figure it out, you're in your late 30s.
It sucks, doesn't it?
You've wasted your good years.
It sucks.
Right. Where you could have lived on less. You could have, picked up a second job because you had the energy to do it. And now you got to now you're in the hole. So now I got to not only get backfill that hole, and then I can start being in the positive.
Well, it's like, what's up, Mathematics? I can't say that name. Sorry. Where the chat just changed. Mathematicus? I probably butchered that. My apologies. So it's just like Will Smith said in Hitch. Did you ever see Hitch?
Yes.
And you remember when he's talking about how he was screwing everything up with women and he started to figure out, and he goes, like every late bloomer, I was eager to make up for lost time. And that's me. That's why I'm working more, I'm saving more, I'm investing more, because I screwed up my life for the first 28 years. And I didn't even start to figure it out till I was about 30. And I mean, start to figure it out. I didn't get really aggressive until my early 30s. And as time goes on, I get hungrier and more aggressive because I'm eager to make up for lost time because I was a late bloomer.
Well, and I've always been interested in money, and I was fortunate enough to have a lot of success early on in my life. And I was fortunate enough to be very successful earlier in my life, and I was dumb enough not to know how to handle it. And so I lost it all. And I've shared this on my channel. I had, I don't even want to count, somewhere around 9-10 units or 10 properties. I had it all, S500, multiple Rolexes, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't understand the game, right? And that is part of the struggle that we have to make sure that we speak to as content creators. And I know you agree with me 110% on this, is, yeah, we got to stack, but I also got to talk to you about, look, maybe you can't stack as hard if you got a couple $1,000s in credit card debt over here at 20% interest. Like, the stacking keeps you motivated. So keep stacking because that keeps you on task. But we can't ignore this other piece over here, right? You can't be out here, flossing for the gram and you living on credit, right? Like, we got to get our foundation right. And we got to teach our communities to get that foundation right. And when that foundation right, then it all amplifies itself in ways that you can't even imagine.
So when I met you, and backing up to you were lucky enough to be successful, but not smart enough to know what to do with it. I pulled up in that 4Runner I rented, just in case I ran into some snow. Now I do got a nice Power Stroke, it's paid off, but I wasn't driving no diesel down there. And I drive a beater. I drive a beater most of the time. So here's the deal: is that the difference between if I would have met you 20 years ago, you would have pulled up in a Lambo, and when I met you this time, you pulled up in a decent, nice, presentable sedan that's cost effective? That's the difference, isn't it?
Oh man, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like so when I moved from Southern California to Northern California, and when I moved up here, I had a Jaguar, and I was telling my assistant at the time I'm gonna get a new car, and she was like, "Oh, what do you think about getting?" I'm like, "I'm gonna get a Chevy Equinox," and she said, "You gonna go from a Jaguar to a Chevy Equinox?" I was like, "Yep." She couldn't understand it. And couldn't understand it.
Honestly, man, when I go down the road in my beater, nobody expects anything out of me. It's kind of nice.
Well, and so I drive a solid SUV, a little Hyundai, and it works. But
that's
what's beautiful about that car?
That's what it was. It's paid off, isn't it?
It's paid off.
Yeah,
it's paid off.
And it's reliable, and it's all-wheel drive. So if you hit weather, you're good to go.
Right. Yep, and I paid extra payments all the way through, so that I paid it off a year early.
Yep, that's smart. Right. You save some of that interest.
Right. Oh, listen, nickel stacking. Don't talk to me about divorce and how much that costs, bro. Anyway, I might start crying here. It might be a therapy session, y'all. Nickel. A buddy's dad of mine said to me when I was growing up, "You can't get rich giving half of your money away."
That's right. So before I forget, there's something I really want you to share with people, because I love this. And it's not just caterpillars, it's ants, there's other animals that do this, but can you share with them the caterpillar analogy, because it's so true? And I find that this is true with people, and I'm telling you, there's a lot of the stacking audience is no different. They will watch those pumper channels, and y'all got to know who they are. It's not just the one that y'all mentioned earlier. There's 3 other ones that come to mind. It's the audience that watches that and has a caterpillar mentality. And man, I loved that video you did about that. So if you can explain that.
Right. I love it. So one of our challenges that we have to fight against is our natural tendency to think that activity is accomplishment. And you can think about days that you've had at work where you've been active as hell, but you didn't get anything done. You're running around like crazy, but you didn't get anything done. And so some French biologist, or yeah, I think it was biologist, whatever. They did this research on this caterpillar called a processionary caterpillar. And they walk by looking at the caterpillar butt in front of them. And what they did was they lined the caterpillars up in a perfect circle around a flower pot. And so that there was no beginning and there was no ending. And because there was a caterpillar butt in front of them, those caterpillars marched, and they marched for days. And they even put the favorite food of the caterpillars in the middle of that circle. And the caterpillars would fall off and die. And the other caterpillars would climb over them just to keep walking and following that trail. And it is the best example of how we just do things and we follow it because that's what we've been taught. That's what we've seen. We think activity equals accomplishment. We do it this way because this is how mom and dad handled their money. We do it this way because this is what we think everyone else does. And we never stop and ask the questions, and we never stop and challenge that. And so you can never think that just because you're doing something that you're actually making progress. Yeah, you're stacking, but are you getting closer to your goal? Right? Yep. You're stacking, but are you taking care of your foundational pieces so that you're not paying 20%, 30% in credit cards, right? Are you really making progress?
That's right.
You got to keep asking yourself that.
And all these people that follow these channels with multi-thousand subs, with multi-thousand views that are telling them silver's going to 5,000 an ounce, do they stop and ask that question? Because they're the caterpillar. I'll tell you what, I love all y'all, but if we're all walking in a circle and my fat ass is hungry, they put my favorite meal, I'm breaking line. My fat ass is going to go there for a drink and a meal. Love y'all, but no, that's not how that goes down.
Hey, don't let them put a little rub and coke in the middle for me. I'm done.
That's what I'm saying, man. I'm breaking formation. I'm over there having my vodka and soda water and eating my steak and potatoes and watching y'all sweat in that circle. And
that's so you can only imagine, folks, what we did when we hung out together. Never mind.
But what you just said though is they do it because their mom and their dad did it, and all these people, these politicians, these channels tell them to do it. So here, let me tell you a story. Early 2000s, during the housing boom, I got into drywall, right? And I started at the top. I was a fitness guy, so I had to learn how to make everything look presentable that had dents and dings and all that, and texture errors. But I also had to know how to frame a room. I had to know how to do all that. And there was a guy that we hired on. His name was Tim, and he'd been doing this for 20 years, okay? And they assumed that because he'd been doing this for 20 years, he was better than me, who'd been doing it about a year and a half, 2 years at the time. But the guy didn't fix a lot of mistakes. And they never listened to me. They said, oh, he's been doing it 20 years. There was one night I got on my phone and I called my boss. I said, listen, you need to get out here right now and look at what I'm dealing with. I don't care if you're sitting at home. You need to come see what I'm telling you because you will see that I'm right. And he was really unhappy. He got in there and he saw what was going on, and he pulled me aside. He said, listen, man, I'm sorry. He says, you were right. This guy's been doing it wrong all this time. He doesn't know what he's doing. So just because someone's been doing something so long and following a trend for so long doesn't mean it's the right way.
Yeah, we got to challenge that, right? And you're always responsible for what you do. You got to own your investments. You got to own your own results. And then at the same time, you and I take this very seriously, that if you take the time to listen to us, we're going to do our very best to give you the best information we have. And that's part of this.
And it may not be what you want to hear, but it's the truth, at least as far as we see it.
Right. I mean, I remember when I started talking about stocks on my channel, and folks were like, what? I'm like, yeah, y'all, like, this is how you play the game. But we just haven't been taught those kind of things. And I love Jeffro over here with the 2017 Transit 250 with 260,000 miles on it. That's what it's about. Like we we spend too much time trying to impress people who don't give a daggone about us.
That's right. That makes me think of Dave Ramsey. I got issues with him, but he's smart in a way. And he's right. He goes, you will spend all this money to impress people who don't really care. And he's right about a lot of things. That happens to be one of them.
Oh, fact, absolutely.
I know a guy, and this is going to sound bad of me, but he's a very immoral, selfish person. He's a bad friend. He's a bad coworker. And I haven't talked to him in years, but a buddy of mine still does. And he's very selfish. You can take this guy out, buy 5-6 meals, and he won't even buy you a $2 cup of coffee. So I actually relish in what happened to him. So what he did, he supposedly bought a house. I'm sure he had a cosigner because his credit was terrible and he had no money to put down to speak of. So if that's true, which I question, I think his parents co-signed. He bought a house at the top of the market and he made fun of everyone else because he thought he made the best investment. Well, he's lost a huge percentage on it because he bought this house 2.5 years ago. So do the math.
Mm-hmm.
And he got this girlfriend that was considerably younger, and for him, she was a 10. And she moved her dogs in. They tore up his cabinets. He bought a brand new 4Runner on finance. It's a Tundra, I think. Anyway, whatever. She's driving that, and he's driving her beater. And then he bought her like some Camry that he financed. He put her on the deed to the house, even though it was his house, supposedly. And long story short, he thought he was smarter than everybody else, and he was the worst friend you could ever have. Well, she left him, and now she owns half the house. I don't know how that's going to play out. And I spent an hour before the stream laughing when I found out. Not because I'm an evil man, because I hope it teaches him. Because he is the most selfish friend you could ever hope to have. And I hope he learns from it. Because pain will be the best teacher if we let it be the best teacher for us, I think.
Yeah, and you don't have to go through that experience to learn from his lesson.
Right. To learn the lesson, and that's what the smart people do. Smart people look at other people's experience and say, man, that could happen to me.
Yeah.
And people don't do that. They always think it's going to be different. They think their kids are going to be different. Like, people don't do that. They don't connect those dots. It's always going to be different for me. No, man. No.
So,
man, go ahead.
We start to wrap up here. Yep. Constitutional, I want to thank you for being a great friend. It is truly a bromance, and we connected early on, and can't believe it's been this long for us to actually sit down and do something together.
We got to do this again on your channel. We got to do this again, man.
I definitely, I'm an old dog, so I appreciate you teaching me the new technology on how to do this. And what I love was actually seeing a lot of your folks that follow you and their engagement. And let me tell you, man, I'm not going to say they're better than the Stackers University folks, because you listen, man, they just, it can't be that way, but they're pretty damn close.
Well, so they need to be part of the Stackers. They need to be part of the Stackers University folks. We need to merge the people, man.
I'm not for everybody. I get it. Listen, some folks, I'm just not for them, and I get that. And find what works for y'all, but please be intentional about what you let into your head. Yep. And Nico said something about don't be a sheep in the comments. There's a lot of sheep type of advice that we're given. And actually, I did a video where I talked about, the sheeps and wolves, and that we have these sheeps among us that are in wool, these wolves among us that are in these sheep's clothing, and they perpetuate this idea, right? Like, oh, you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z because it's too risky, and you should only put your money in the 401k, and all this kind of standard advice for the quote unquote average person. And all it does is keep us broke and keep us in the system. And so my only hope for y'all is that you make intentional decisions about what you feed your brain, right? We may not be very good about feeding our bodies good stuff. Lord knows I ain't very good at that. But I am damn good about what I let in my head, because what is in my head shapes what I can do, right? It shapes my thoughts, my feelings, my perceptions, my attitudes.
But
And
see,
that then has the ability to control my behavior. Go ahead.
What you just said about not putting the best things in your body, I've been guilty of that. I used to be yoked. I was in great shape. I've kind of let myself go a little bit. But that being said, you're still smart enough to know that it would be better if you did, and you would live longer to enjoy wealth, and you wouldn't be mad at the person for pointing that out, would you? Because you're a smart, intelligent individual, and you're aware of it, just like me.
You know, right. I mean, I played college football. I used to be somewhat of an athlete, right?
Yeah.
And those things change, but the importance, like, no matter what y'all do, folks, it starts in your head.
Yep.
Your head controls it. It controls your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your attitudes. And from there, it drives your behaviors. And your behaviors, when repeated enough, become your habits. And your habits is what allows you to get to your goals. And so you can't jump this cycle. You got to ride the whole cycle. And so your thoughts and your actions will lead you to your goals. And whatever it is, feed that brain of yours the best, because it's going to shape everything else. It all falls out from there.
I agree, man. So y'all needed to go to his channel, check him out. Don't just watch him. He's got a lot to offer. A link to his channel is in the description below. We got to touch base more often, man. In fact, if you can give me like 2 minutes after the show ends, I want to show you something backstage on how to set it up and how easy it is. If you got a couple minutes.
Absolutely. Hey, Zippo Mustang. Hey, listen, man, that's true,
Zippo.
baby. A
Yep.
dream plan is just a hallucination. That's all it is.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, I got nothing else to say other than keep stacking, man. You got anything else?
Man.
And y'all are phenomenal for coming in. We had a good turnout, especially with all the lives going on. That's great.
Hey, put an A+ in the comments and let everyone know that you always stack smarter and never stop learning.
That's right. Keep stacking, y'all. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you showing up on the show, brother.
Salute to you, brother.